Chris Duffy has a piece of furniture that he designed in the design wing of the Louvre. Yeah, the world famous museum in Paris where the Mona Lisa sits. How cool's that? His designs started life from his kitchen back in 2002, and these were then sold on market stalls in Spitalfields and Camden market. Fast forward to nowadays, and his iconic award-winning designs are cherished by the hip and trendy cool crowd. Things have changed. He takes his design inspiration from a George Bernard Shaw quote: "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing." Let's have a chat with a designer who claims his only philosophy for designing is to design things that get him excited. Welcome, Chris Duffy.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me along.
Pleasure. We're matching.
Yes.
In black?
Yes.
Is that your uniform, black?
It is. It's the architect and designer's universal uniform. Just wear black from head to toe.
Why do we do that?
We do it because, it can be used anywhere. So like in the morning, I'll be in the workshop, like helping people build things and getting all dusty. But then I might be in a meeting at lunchtime with the accountants or with a client. That I might be going for like a dinner in a very posh restaurant or something with a collector in the afternoon, and you can wear this through all those scenarios.
Takes us from day to night.
But it's mostly because I'm guessing most designers and architectures are egomaniacs, and it's slightly slimming.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Are you an egomaniac? Are you an egomaniac?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I love that. How did you? When did you first learn, Chris Duffy, that you were an egomaniac?
Well, I think it just comes with, I don't know, I'm being very general, but with any artist or designer, basically, it's like, look at me, look how clever I am, look what I can do, look what I can create. So
have you got any incredible self-belief?
That's the whole reason you do it. You have to have a kind of arrogance in a way, especially in design. Because what you're saying a lot of the time is like, this is how it's been done forever, and I think I've got a better way of doing it, and I think everyone should do it this way, which is my way. So that is kind of self-belief and arrogant in a way. Do
you believe that your way is the best way?
Yes. Yeah, always, yeah. Well, I don't know, until proven wrong. Well, it's sometimes just more interesting way of doing something a lot of the time. A lot of times the best way of doing it has been done and done and done again, but that's of no interest. And so if you can do it maybe a different way, it may not work exactly but it might be more fun, a bit more interesting, a new way of looking at things.
Have you always had that philosophy?
I don't know, something probably I've sort of built up over the last sort of 10 years or so of working, in this profession.
What, you've developed your ego?
Ego, philosophies, ideas. Yeah, it's all about development as well. It's all about that's the sort of main thing, I suppose, for being a designer or working for yourself is every day you can work 10, 12 hours a day on yourself, like pushing yourself forwards, even if it's like a fraction, you're slightly ahead of where you were the day before, and then you look back and hopefully you've covered quite a lot of ground and grown as a human. So it's all about being slightly more every day than you were the day before.
Excellent. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's start, first of all, with the icebreaker.
Okay.
Who is Chris Duffy? What can you tell us about you or show us that we might not necessarily associate with you?
I was saying, I wish I had something a bit more dark or whatever else, but I'm trying to think of like a parallel life that I might have led, and I can't really think of anything other than I've been doing lots of water sports since I was a child, since I was probably about 4 years old, as my family were very much into sort of boats, speedboats, sailing, any kind of sort of water sports, and I was sort of pushed down that direction. I've brought a little Bluetooth controller with me. This isn't actually technically the controller, this is one from my electric skateboard. But so basically it's a speed controller. So I used to do a hell of a lot of water skiing, mono skiing, wakeboarding. We sort of do a lot of snow skiing and snowboarding. But they're very hard on the body, all those kind of sports. So my new toy is called an e-foil, which is a kind of electric surfboard. I don't know if you know what they are.
That you get blown out of the water?
Yeah. Well, yeah, basically it's got a hydrofoil on the bottom. So you sort of stand on this surfboard and it's got a hydrofoil on the bottom and a mast that's about 1.5 meters long with a big fin on the bottom and an electric propeller. And you sort of surf about sort of 1 meter above the water and sort of carve and like you will on a surfboard or on a snowboard. And yeah, so that's my kind of new favourite thing. And so yeah, I've always done sort of those kind of board sports and balance sports.
Scary. It looks quite.
It is quite scary.
It's quite dynamic.
It's quite dynamic. It's really it's awesome fun if you're into those kind of sports. It's also very, very sort of hard skill and something you can improve upon. So it's not like sort of I'm very much against things like jet skis where you can just sort of jump on those and just trigger it and just blasting around. There's kind of no skill and nothing to learn with it, you know, sort of. So I'm not a huge fan of those kind of things. I like things where it's a bit more pure, a bit more subtle in the learnings, lots of curving, lots of skill, lots of learning, lots of
improvement, lots of growth.
Yeah.
Where does this come from then? It's almost like this desire to grow and to learn and how does this apply to your design work?
Well, yeah. So it is sort of a need to be doing things. So I don't know where it comes from. It drives sort of my wife crazy and everything else because I get overwhelmed with lots of all the work and projects I've got on all the time. And then I'm like, okay, I need a break. I'm going to burn out. And then I try to take a few days off or a week off. And then I'm itching to carry on working. I can't just basically stop. It's kind of an internal drive. And
you've got high energy, haven't you?
I do, yeah. Basically, high energy until I basically get home, and then I just crash down, and then don't move until the next day, and then.
What's the day in the life of Chris Duffy?
Me, okay. Get woken up by my 2-year-old son plodding in around about 7:30 in the morning. Then go upstairs, have a pot or like a cafetiere of coffee.
Whole one.
Yeah, whole one. While feeding him breakfast, and I'm always watching YouTube channels on electric cars and electric transportation and things in the morning. So
you're interested in electric cars?
Oh yeah. I sort of love all electric mobility. So with like my company, I was like one of the first ones in the country back in 2014 or 15 to have electric vans for the company. So
aggressive.
Just because it just makes perfect sense. And the earlier you get them, the better they are. You just sit down with a pen and paper, basically. They pay themselves back in a 5-year period, and after that they're paying you, you know, and you're not polluting, and it's pure luxury because it's silent, it's smooth, it's like there's hardly any servicing or none at all. No, I just love the whole, all my cars, or my other car is electric. Yeah, and that's also, I mean, another thing on top of my whole company as well. I've started trying to combine my love of water sports and boats and electric cars, and I've actually started a new startup making electric solar-powered boats. So on top of the furniture.
You're actually designing them?
So we're designing them, developing them. Started a startup sort of company. So.
What's your background then? What's your training?
My training is going right back. So when I wasn't water skiing as a kid, I was climbing around on. There used to be like a sort of lots of dumps and stuff, collecting old bikes and in the old days, sort of dumps used to have things like old bikes, prams, lawnmowers, and things like that, and taking them all apart and making different kind of bikes and go-karts and things. Then after school, I went to art college. And in school and art college, they're really pushing me to be more of a fine artist because that's kind of where they felt that I excelled. And then I kind of really
How did you feel about that?
Well, I like that because it's great at being a fine artist. You can do that. But for me, it was too, what's the word?
Restrictive?
Well, it wasn't restrictive because actually you can take like a concept and you can take it through, but it's too subjective. So with fine art, you know, is it right? Is it good? The answer is yes, that's correct. Is it not? The answer no. That's also correct. It's purely subjective, 100%. So, which is, I think, it's just too much leeway for me. Whereas with design, you can make a design piece that's also maybe an art piece, and you can say, well, do you like the art piece? Yes, no, both are correct, But does it work as a table? Does it work as a chair? Does it work everywhere else? Then if it doesn't, it doesn't. And if it does, then it does, and it's not subjective. So it takes sort of 50% of that subjectivity away, which I quite like.
That you like the certainty in people saying yes or no. I like the design or not.
Well,
it works.
I like the certainty in it works. So even if they hate the design, they can't deny it works as a table. They can't deny it works as a chair. So I'm at least 50% correct. So and there's something you can check against.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fine art was off the table.
Yes.
And then?
Well, actually, fine art was off the table, and I was kind of going down more the product design, sort of almost industrial design routes, and a bit of craft sort of thrown in. But so I did. Was it to Art College in East London, in Newham Art College, which was absolutely amazing, complete eye opener. One of the best years of my life. Well, I went to quite a standard or school in East London. We had some very good teachers there, very good art teachers, and that's kind of where I sort of excelled in art and sort of design and technology at school. But for the rest of it, I think it found school very oppressive. I hated school. It was a bit of a rough school. I didn't have any real trouble at school because most of my friends at school were very large, so it was okay. But as soon as I got out, I couldn't wait to get out of school. I just really didn't like it. And then went to art college, not knowing what it would be. It was basically my art teacher sort of said, "You've got to go." I think my parents were sort of pushing me to go and get a job, and then my art teacher was like, no, he has to go to art college, he's got to go. Yeah, and so my parents were like, fine, if he says he's got to go, he's got to go. So I went to art college, and it was, just a completely different world. So it's full of people who are like me, who weren't into football. Everyone at my school, it was just like football, and it's just something I've never had any interest in, So it's just a world where everybody else, I didn't know there's other people who didn't like football in the world until I went there.
You found your place that you fit in.
Exactly. And everyone there was also the ones who were best at art in their school and best at design and so on.
Did you feel like a misfit before that?
I think so. I don't know if I felt it. I didn't know any difference, so I don't know. But looking back, I think, I didn't really fit into that school and that environment. And then, exactly, it was just like finding there was other people like you in the world.
Finding your tribe,
and I didn't know they existed, so I didn't know, it's like even going to clubs and bars when you're at school, you go to sort of these terrible bars in Tottenham or whatever that would let kids in, basically, but I would hate them anyway if you could get into them. I'd just sit there in the corner, sort of covered in coats or something, hiding away. And then,
any of your friends then are your friends now?
More from art college and university, absolutely. So they're still some of my oldest and closest friends.
Who'd you hang out with?
A friend is Alistair Gary. He's an old art friend. He was a big heavy metaler at the time when I met him at art college, covered in tattoos and leather jackets and long hair. Now he's a tech entrepreneur worth a fortune, and doing really well. And we're actually working together on this new startup. So it was with him. So luckily, my company, when he started up his tech startup, my company was doing very well. So I was able to invest some of our company money to start up his company, and his company went on to do very, very well. So now we're kind of reciprocally going around, and
he's involved in the maritime stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So he's involved in the solar-powered boat projects we're working on, and it's all feeding around on each other.
They say, don't they, who you surround yourself with has an effect on the quality of your life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what I say. I think, art college was just, so found different kinds of music, different kind of places to go out, different kind of people, and then everything sort of seemed to sort of lock into place. I wasn't so much, I'm like, wow, instead of I hate this, everything started to become I love this, I love this place, I love this music, I love this life, these people, and so on.
So your perspective changed towards what you loved versus what you didn't love.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the most, I think, things about sort of university and art college that gets lost now, because obviously the massive costs of it, that kind of puts a sort of a taint on it. But the real reason, I mean, when you were there, and everyone, all the tutors, you were there just for that. If you learnt a bit of art and design on the side, well, great. But it was the experience, it was the meeting the right people, it was also the competition. So suddenly, you're not the best drawer in school, or the best designer. Now you're one of, dozens of the best drawers and the best. So then it's that competition that builds up, that you push each other. So that's what I think art college and university can provide, or did provide.
And you graduated it with a degree in product design?
Yes. From Brighton University.
How did you do?
I did well, actually. So I got 2-1, which I thought was good, because I think first for people who were just like nose to the grindstone every day, and that wasn't me. I was there more for the enjoyment of the whole thing. So when I got that, I was very happy. Actually, looking back, the work what I did wasn't actually that bad. I mean, I could have done a hell of a lot more of it if I had worked harder, but it actually came out not too bad.
Hey there! If you're enjoying this episode and want to hear more exciting and informative chats about design and architecture, then don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, back to the episode.
When did you realise that you had this gift to design incredibly unique pieces of furniture?
Well, I think I'd say, so after, what did I do? After university, I worked just outside of Brighton, a place called Lewis, for these people who made sort of very fine pieces of Biedermeier and Art Deco furniture all by hand. So I did that, and I didn't like that much for about a year.
Why not?
Well, in that industry, they're quite tough people, and they're amazing what they do. But obviously, they're all like sort of, at that time, they had these kind of immensely skilled artisans who were in their 60s, 70s, and they just seem to sort of look at the day they have a completely empty work table. By the end of the day, there'll be some insanely beautiful piece of furniture sitting there, like as if it just been imagined into reality, and they didn't seem to move. All they seemed to be doing was stuffing their pipes with tobacco, and and it's just like, obviously with those decades and decades of experience, but they're not the most forgiving. They're quite hard on the beginner, and also I think they saw that I could do it, but I just didn't have the patience. So even now, I tend to stick mostly to design. I know exactly how to do it and how to get it done, but I always employ people to put the things together, because I know that way that if there's something wrong, I'm happy to get them to redo it until it's right. Whereas if it was me doing it, I'd be, that's fine, let's move on, kind of thing.
But that's a real skill, isn't it, to be aware of your of what you're able to do and also your limitations.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think knowing your weaknesses is one of the best skills.
What are your weaknesses?
Lack of patience. I've got lots of I think basically to be sort of a successful design was one element of it, and it's not actually a massive element of it. So I kind of come up with this analogy myself of basically like the Trivial Pursuit's cheese wheel, So like if you got all those, you got your wheel, let's say one little slot is designed, so I know I'm sort of very good at that, or another piece might be sort of, I'm very good at some programs or so on. But to be a great designer, you need to fill all of those cheeses. So then you find, okay, well, I may not be great at the CAD program, so I'll find someone who's a genius in that, and I'll put them into that slot. I may not be amazing at dealing with customers, which is another skill you need to be able to do with. Cheese. So you find someone who's great at that, and I may not have the patience to, or we might have more work on that I could even do. So we need to take on skilled makers who aren't just as good as I am, but are better, and keep filling it out. And then once you've got your full wheel, then you're flying. Then you are a complete designer. But you just have to know which cheeses are your speciality, and let the other people get on with the ones that are their specialities.
Where did you learn that stuff?
I just learned it over the last 20 years of trial and error. I just learned the hard way. So anyway, I tend to learn. A coach? No. Just basically, I suppose, a life coach, I suppose. And obviously, when you're dealing with customers in the real world, there's no soft. They're not soft with you. They come back. There's a problem. They want it resolved, and so you learn, and you don't make that mistake again. And then you pass that on to your staff, and make sure they don't make the same mistakes that you made, if you can do that.
So how do you go? So you worked in this company.
Yep.
That you mentioned they were quite tough with you at the start of your career, and then what happened?
Oh, then I hadn't. Then basically I had a friend who was living in Australia. Another friend from this is Kish, who was a friend from university, and he was like, "I've got a spare room. Come and stay with me in Australia for a few weeks." So I'm like, "Great, let's do that." So I sold everything up. I had my car, my sofa, my plates, everything. Cashed everything in. Left Brighton. Flew off to Australia, and then ended up staying in Australia and traveling around Australia, New Zealand, Japan, California, and stuff for the next sort of year and a half. Sort of traveled the world, so that was great. Sort of doing jobs and things as I went.
Road trip,
putting everything on credit cards, and so that was good. So I got to travel the world quite a bit. And usually, actually, when I was working for lots of sort of furniture companies and design companies, because my idea was along the way I would go and work in bars and things like that. That's everybody's idea. So everyone goes there saying, I'm going to work in a pub or a bar, but there's a million applications. You can't get those jobs. But then I go to a furniture shop or a design thing, and they'd be giving me jobs like a lot easier. So I ended up working in lots of design companies, like in Australia and Melbourne. And
what were you doing?
Sydney.
What were you designing?
So there's one. I was just designing sort of shelving and sort of basic desks and furniture and things in Melbourne, and also just other shops where I was just doing repair work on furniture and almost warehouse work and things. But it paid better, but maybe not as much fun as working in the bars, but it'll be a lot more money than they'll pay you in a Australian bar with $1 pot.
And then that
schooner.
And then that brought you back to the UK.
Yeah, then I eventually completely ran out of money. I hadn't eaten in 2 days, and then I had like one of these open tickets and just had to get a flight back to the UK, back to the parents, I suppose. Then after that, what did I do? Yeah, after that, I got a job working for sort of a chain of furniture shops, working as in their warehouse for a bit. Then they gave me the job as like a buyer, so a buyer for the shops. But while I was doing that, I started up my while I was doing that, I was sending out sort of hundreds of CVs to get a job as a designer for a design company. But I think as then is now, there's never any work for that, and I think no one really wants. Obviously, you just come in as a designer straight away. You always got to sort of work a way up, no one, because obviously design companies have sort of top designers that work for them, and then I thought as a, they're going to love me. They're going to see stuff in me, and they're going to make me a designer day one. Obviously, none of that happened. So I had to decide: am I just going to get a normal job, or if I want to really be a designer, I have to start my own company? And so that's what I did. So I just started my own company, and did that at the weekends. And took my days down at my other job to sort of 3 or 4 days a week, and started making little products that I sold on Spitalfields Market and Camden Market, and that was quite fun until I had that was bringing enough money for me just to basically subsist on. So like to really just be able to rent a room, and then once I had that kind of income, after about 2 years of doing that, I went full time, and just basically then had no money for the next 8-10 years. But for me, that was fine. I was used to having no money, so it was, and I quite like that as well, because I still lived very well.
You like the struggle?
Yeah, and it's also like you sort of go, you end up going invited to parties or nice places and things, and living like a rich person and that's more fun when you've got no money, because obviously if you've got the money, where's the challenge? You live like a rich person anyway, so it's like here's more
unique perspective. Requires you to be creative.
Yeah,
this is a competitive market. Product design is a competitive market. Yeah. For anybody listening who's wondering, how is it possible to differentiate yourself from the noise?
Yes, so that's kind of what I got pushed into. So at the very beginning, I was doing lots of designs that were kind of almost IKEA and simple in style. And because of my background, I was trying to keep the prices very as low, because I couldn't envision anyone spending more than £200 on anything, because I've never spent more than £200 on anything that you can drive or live in. So that's where I kind of designed that kind of really sort of held back the designs and the grandeur and the ideas of what I could do and the concepts I could make. But I was part of a group called Hidden Art, which was run by this amazing woman called Dinika, who's sadly not with us anymore. And it was in East London, near Brick Lane, and it was fantastic. And all designers would come, basically a group place for all designers to come around. They'd put on drinks and things, and you meet each other, talk about what shows are on, what design shows, what funds the Department of Trade and Industry are giving you to do a show here and there, and just like loads of little things like that. And these have its own little awards ceremony, and there were people getting all these awards for these designs, which are amazing designs and great ideas, but they didn't contain themselves to being affordable or sort of easy to manufacture, which all mine at the time were. And I'm like, well, if I just throw away the affordability and the ease of manufacture and just go purely conceptual, I could do that, you know? That's no problem at all. So I just did that. And the second I did it, there was starting to get awards. People were loving it. It was going into magazines, and
that's a massive shift. That's a massive
Yeah.
shift. I mean, you glibly said,
Yeah.
if I just design from a conceptual perspective,
Yes.
and throw away the fact that actually my mindset was keeping me focused on money.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that come about?
Well,
Was it as quick as that?
I think it was simple as that. And I just thought, well, what I'd do is I can do these, and that would get me the press and the awards and everything that everyone else was getting. And then people would go and buy my £200 simple coffee table or other things like that. So basically it would just be a PR exercise, if
so
anything.
the conceptual stuff was
Yeah.
creating the eyeballs.
Yeah, exactly. And then I thought everyone would buy the normal sort of standard things that I was designing. But yeah, so basically I would do that, and then so I did the first one was like a shadow chair. So it was a chair where the base is all black and very flat, and it looks like the shadow of the chair. So the chair hasn't got two back legs, it's only got the two front legs, and it's kind of basically a cantilever chair. And that sort of went huge and went to loads of magazines and newspaper articles, and actually I still look back, it's still a really good chair, and for your first sort of piece to be a chair and to be kind of almost a completely original chair,
It's groundbreaking.
is quite, because usually people only get to use chairs when they're in the 80s or 90s. It would be some sort of really famous architect who'll sort of worked his whole life, and then he'll have he'll design some
That's
chair.
his legacy.
That's the thing, and I thought that was basically the first thing I did, so that went very well. And then people wanted to buy it, and I'm like, oh yeah, but it's incredibly hard to make, it's going to be insanely expensive. And they're like, I don't care. I want it. And I'm like, and I never knew there were people like this, because I'm from maybe sort of an East London mindset or perspective, where it was like, how much do you pay for that? You mug, I could sell it for cheap. And I think the cheaper it was, the better it is, So that was always the mindset I was kind of brought up with. Whereas obviously I had to flip that entire mindset into,
So it was the advent of the conceptual designs that really pushed you to where you are now.
Mm.
And what about your balloons and the abyss, and how did they all come about?
Actually, it was back on that point. It was a friend of mine as well. He was really into sort of expensive shoes and jumpers, and I'm like, why are you buying? You can get jumpers or shoes for a lot cheaper. And he's like, well, sometimes it's just nice to have something that's really nice, and you can enjoy that. And I never thought of it in that way. That was kind of news to me as well. So that was kind of eye opening. With the balloon table, for example, it was not really a table about balloons. All I was trying to do with that one was I just wanted to make a piece of glass levitate. I thought, let's make the most basic table you can make, which is a piece of glass that holds itself in place, that you can put things on, and then that holds itself levitating in space, and that's your table. Now, how can you make that glass levitate? So there's lots of different ways. You can hang by wires, you can do the shadow chair sort of concept again, like I was thinking like that. But I thought, okay, let's work with sort of levitation this time and buoyancy and so on. So I thought if you put balloons underneath it, it will look like the balloons are holding the glass in place and they're sort of for levitating. And then you'd use the strings in a structural way and sort of cleverly wind them together to give a very fine structure, but actually quite a strong structure. And that was it. So that was the sort of the idea and concept behind that, and then developing it.
And I want to talk about the abyss in a minute.
Yeah.
But you were talking at the start of this conversation, we talked about the fact that you like things to either work or not.
Yes.
People to like them or not.
Yeah.
And you didn't like subjectivity.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is quite subjective. People, either love that design or not.
Yes.
But I guess it always works as a table. Is that your point?
Well, it always works as a table, is kind of my point. But also, I kind of really like it when people hate my work. So, especially like I brought out another one along those lines was like the swing table. So it's a table where all the chairs are swings. So that's just really
that looks
design.
so much fun.
That goes back to like 2009. And again, the brief I set myself for a brief for that one, which was just do something as silly as possible.
Was that for Google?
Yeah, well, basically, I did it as unpractical as possible, and I just did it as like I just thought it would just get attention, good or bad, and then again, people would
it's amazing.
Things. I never thought we'd have to build one because it was a render at the beginning and a concept, and then we sort of put it out there, and
so it's basically a table,
with
suspended chairs,
and a framework
from the ceiling.
Oh no! So basically, I don't like that where you have to hang things from ceilings and things. A lot of people do that or bolt things to walls, but I think people really dislike that because it's putting in structure. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of engineering. Whereas, and it's also taking the engineering away. Like as a designer, you should be doing the engineering. You should be answering as many of the questions as possible. So it's an entire frame, self-contained frame. So it doesn't bolt to anything. You just put it into the room. Comes to pieces, you can bolt it together so you can get it into the room.
So how are the chairs work? How do the chairs work?
Well, it's a tall frame around the top and all the wires hang from the framework. So it's almost like instead of a four-poster bed, it's a four-poster table with a top
with
frame.
hanging chairs.
With hanging chairs. So it works quite nicely because it's a space within a space. So it's almost a room within the room because it kind of makes a kind of a mental box that you're also in as well as like inside a sort of
I loved it.
thing.
So you designed the concept, and unfortunately for you, people loved it.
Yes. So it was like first one to buy. It was as an art collector who I'm still really good friends with now, and we still hang out a lot. And he's a great guy, and he likes to buy sort of the first everything that I make in a way. And he bought it up. It's like, it's an art piece. It's an art piece. So he's French, and then I was like, I have to have this. I have to have this table, and I'm like. No, it was just for a PR thing. It was never supposed to be built, but we built the first one and it worked perfectly, straight as it was designed, and we made very, very only minor changes to it over the past sort of 10 or more years we've been making it. And then as soon as we made that one for him, we put it onto our social media at the time. God knows what that was, probably MySpace or something. And then I don't know, I think it might be the first Facebook, just Facebook opened up. And then I think IBM phoned up and they said they wanted 4. Then I got a guy phone up and he said, I'm the architect for Larry Page and he loves it and he wants one for his house and he wants one for every Google in the world. And that went on to be like one of our biggest sellers. Like we were selling, we're selling on average one a week. Like something that was never supposed to make one. And like, again, we threw away practicality, threw away ease of manufacture, threw away costs. And people
what does it feel like to be a designer that has his original mindset is based around maybe finances, concern for money, and then suddenly you're launched into this very financially lucrative and money wash. There's a lot of money going around.
Hopefully not too much money washing, but
that was the wrong word. Forget money washing. Scratch.
Well, it's really liberating. It's a good word. So basically, just now my only mindset is how far can I push the concept? How big can I make it? How so basically I sort of feel like, concepts and ideas. That's what Brighton University was really good at. It was like helping develop original ideas, original concepts and trying to put them together. That's what I got a lot from there. And I sort of feel a lot like they're out in the ether and, they come to you only if they feel that you can make them. is sort of my thought. If they want to be alive, and they'll only go to you if they think you can make them real.
There's a book on that. That's so interesting that you say that. There's actually a book on ideas.
Yeah.
And if you have an idea, it is your responsibility, according to this book, to make that idea come to fruition, because it is your unique idea at this moment.
You've been plagiarizing me.
I think it's the Book of Magic or something.
Oh, really?
That's so weird.
Well, it might be if it's Terry Pratchett. I read lots of Terry Pratchett. It could be if it's something like that.
And then if you don't use the idea, the idea will go to somebody else.
Absolutely.
It will float in the cosmos, the universe, to another person who will receive that idea, and maybe it's their time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I feel about it. So it's like, so that's always been my kind of feeling about how it works. And then if you develop... and exactly. So that idea wants to go, and it wants to be developed to its fullest potential. And also, if it comes to you and you develop to a certain stage, and you don't pay it enough attention, it's I don't want to use a rude word, but it's a bit of a it'll go off to the next person that it can take it to the next stage, and it'll be like, you're not paying me enough attention. I think I'm bigger than this, and it will go off. So if you don't pay enough attention to your ideas and your concepts.
And that's the moral of the story. Yeah. If you have an idea, do something with it.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, it will fly to somebody else who will do... Where do your ideas... How do your best ideas come to you? Is there a situation... Are you in a bath, or do you have to be somewhere?
Yeah, a lot of time in the shower, It's never really sitting down at a desk. So I do a lot of cycling, or even when driving. So like a lot of time... I could have a guy go around and do the little pickups and drop-offs and stuff, but I still do those because it's the only time. I think driving is quite good because you can be driving and it takes over a part of your mind. It's almost like a meditation. It frees up another part of your mind, and that's when things will click into place of things that have been going on, or I'll set myself ideas and I'll set myself like briefs of what we need to do, and I'll think about it, but then...
What comes first then? Is it are you designing a product, or are you designing for a person, or is it a concept?
It's always concept first, but to come up with the concept. So the concept can come from a number of places. A lot of time I try and work with new ways of manufacturing. So use forms of 3D printing. That's a good way of being original, because if you create something that can never have been made before, then it's also original, or sometimes it comes from looking at things, like say with the swing table, just like set yourself a brief that let's just do something wild and silly. With the balloon table, let's make something levitate. With the shadow chair, that actually came from a misunderstanding. So I saw something that I thought was floating using the shadow base. It was in an image, and I thought, that's really clever. They've made the base look like a shadow, and that's what makes that levitate. And then looked more closely at the image, and it was just hung on wires, and the shadow was merely a shadow. And I thought, well, actually, hanging from wires is a very lazy design. It's not even design at all, if anything. But the shadow idea, where I actually misunderstood what I was looking at, is far more elegant. So I kind of held that thought in my mind, and then translated that into a piece of design. So
Interesting starting place.
Have you read this month's issue of Designer magazine yet? Available in digital and print editions, Designer magazine keeps you updated on the world of design and architecture. Get your free trade subscription today at designerarty.co.uk.
And the Abyss has afforded you great success. The Abyss table. Yeah. How did that come about?
That again was really simple, and it was just because we launch. I try and launch at least 4 new designs a year, and some of them, and obviously over the last 20 years, that adds up to quite a lot of designs. And for every 4 designs, there's another 10 that go with it. So they just tend of it's lots and lots of compilation of ideas, and then some really take off and some don't. And
how does it feel when an idea doesn't take off? Because I'm assuming a lot of finance goes into it. Yeah. A lot of time.
Exactly. So, for most tables, they'll take about between £20,000 to £50,000 worth of development, R&D. That's what we are as a company. Ultimately, I don't really want to be a mass manufacturer or anything else. I just love the R&D and the development and the ideas. So we're an R&D company first that makes a few pieces a year. so we could just carry on funding our R&D department. That's what we really care about, So, so it doesn't take off. I always think it's a shame because I think some of the best designs I've had haven't been very popular. Or things that I've liked the most.
What like?
Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Oh, you put me on the spot now. So, I had a nice table that was kind of using the visual language of the internal structure of aeroplanes. I thought that was a particularly nice one, and that got no traction whatsoever. No one liked that design at all.
How would your staff describe you at work?
I don't know, probably a tyrannical. No, I don't.
Love that.
Yeah.
Do you shout?
But no, I don't. I used to at the beginning, but so I think basically again, I worked so long on my own. Everyone thinks that you should be a great boss just because you are a boss, and it's a learning curve. It has been for me over like 20 years. I think I was very bad at it. And also you watch a lot of the TV programs that like to dramatize it where everyone's shouting at everyone and it's almost great television, but I think that makes for a very poor
You're
workplace.
fired.
Yeah, exactly like that. So I tend to think if you're shouting at your staff, personally, it's either, you hired them, so did you hire the wrong person? So that's your fault. Why are you shouting at the staff? Yeah. Or maybe they're not trained properly, which is also your fault. So why are you shouting? Or you haven't spent enough time with them. Or so really it kind of comes back to, if you're sitting there yelling and screaming all day, I think you need to look at yourself first rather than look at the staff member. And so so basically I tend, what's quite good about what we do is very interesting, and so that we get lots of applicants from very good people. So I get to pick from a pool of very, very good people. So that obviously helps greatly. There's another sort of upward spiral that comes from this kind of design.
Three adjectives that people would describe you as.
I don't know.
High standards.
High standards. Yeah, high standards. I think,
demanding.
I'm not demanding. I just demand that everyone's engaged. So I don't want to be talking to someone while they're sort of shut off. Then they need to be sort of
present,
attempting to be present there and listening to what I'm trying to get across. I'd like to think that they think, that what we do is something special, that they're part of something special.
Unique.
Yeah.
You've got some amazing clients. Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, he was really lovely.
What did he buy? The Abyss table?
He bought a special kind of one-off Abyss table that was kind of in 3 sections, and I think he's a big art collector. I think he's got a big art collection foundation. So this is for he bought it for his house. I think Adele might have just bought that house, so she might now have the table. I don't know if the table came with the house, but
your client list is bonkers. You Google. Who are you designing for?
So so when it comes to companies, it's always like Google, lots of the hotel chains like Four Seasons and things like that. All of the IT startups in Silicon Valley. I think if you're an IT startup and you haven't got a swing table, you're not a real IT startup. If you watch the IT crowd, not the IT crowd, sorry, that's a great show. It's not that one. It's called the program Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
They were going around. They get awards for all their sets and their accuracy. And apparently they were going around all the startups and they sort of saw a swing table in every single startup.
And that was yours?
And they all, of course, hopefully, they're all ours. So they came to us and they're like, we have to have one for the show because, it has to be accurate. So they actually bought it as well. So usually they just ask for free, but they had a massive budget and they're like, we'll buy one off you. And they put it in so even in the TV show about Silicon Valley. So lots of hotels, lots of celebrities, lots of pop stars, rock stars.
Do you ever look at your life and think, actually, I deserve it?
I deserve it. Well, yeah. Perhaps because it takes, you pay for it. It takes a lot out of you. I can feel that every table takes a piece of you. It kind of it eats away. So you have to put a hell of a lot into it.
A lot of what? Energy, time,
yourself,
passion,
putting yourself out there. Yeah, I think as well, a lot of people don't understand what it is when you launch a new thing or you launch a new table, and or launch anything, it's like you're really just putting yourself out there. It's like being on stage and so on for people to
criticize.
And it takes something of your soul to sort of there is that kind of final hurdle, that final force of like will to get it out there and get it into the world.
But you're definitely recognised by the world. One of your pieces is in a division of the Louvre.
Yes, in like the design wing. Yeah.
Pronounce the name?
It's the Musée des Arts Décoratifs. Sorry to anyone who's French.
How did that come about? Hi, can I have one of your pieces
so
for the Louvre?
Well, they said that, basically, we're dealing with, they've got lots of curators there, and their top curator had it on her pinboard for years, apparently, and just wanting to acquire it for them. I think they're very fussy about what they acquire, because they're not like, I think, some of the ones in like America and stuff, which would also be great to be part of, they take them, they keep them for a while, then they auction them off, and they obviously sell them for a lot more, and so they don't have to store them forever. But I think with this one, it's part of the French National Collection, so if they take it, they have to keep it really forever. So it's kind of a sense of immortality, so they have to store it or show it forever. So they're sort of very fussy about what they take, because they know that they're going to have to look after it. So so that's quite it's good, an accolade. So kind of
incredible. Keep innovating and creating show-stopping pieces for the world.
Yes.
You're on a roll.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Amazing.
you, Chris Duffy. If you've loved today's podcast, do like and subscribe. I'm going to be here every Monday morning with more exciting guests. See you then.